So we got some new ARF info, right? Sounds like I'm talking like DMX with the ARF, but it's not that kind of ARF. So originally posted on March 22nd, 2023, in a world of complex financial systems. If you're wondering about ARF, they are a credit line that stands out as a simple, effective solution. Think about a credit line. Remember how we always talk about Ripple's XRP with on-demand liquidity and so on? Well, what about ARF? Like it says, a credit line that stands out as a simple, effective solution. There's no pre-funding, no additional collateral, just same-day settlements and unlocked capital. Huh. That's interesting. You know, I talked about Clearpool before, right? Capital markets lending platform, right? For DeFi, you know, the tokenization of DeFi lending. I'm always interested in things like that because I myself, I'm an entrepreneur. And there was a time period that I needed to raise a tremendous amount of capital for to start a new business. But that was 2015. And now I'm in a different situation now. Back on March 21st, they said that they're happy to announce this. They, of course, you know, them as an ARF teamed up with Stellar to solve the liquidity constraints in what, guys? Cross-border payments by offering the world's first unsecured, short-term USDC-based working capital financing solution. Now, I'm going to get more into this, but basically speaking, is ARF yet now a second platform other than Axios that provides Stellar's take on an on-demand liquidity solution, like their ODL solution? I think it's always worth pointing out, right? If you're providing smart contracts, which they are, right, with Sporbon, and also two forms of ODL, like their version of ODL, does that not sound impressive? And even these guys, Sammy's even in there. This guy says, you know, his name is Juju. Like, sounds like on-demand liquidity. It sure as the heck does sound like on-demand liquidity, but Stellar's version of it. Sam, you know, this guy's like ODL. He states a better one. I don't know necessarily it's the better one, but I'm glad that I hold both Stellar and Ripple's XRP. Let's jump into this. And if anything, this was reported probably about 7 days ago. I've been meaning to get into this, but so I'm gonna give you a little background on this. 7 days ago, there's this episode. It's called Tech Talks with Tomer. These are good ones, right? That they share every once in a while. In this particular episode, Tech Talks with Tomer, Kazim Ozyilmaz is the co-founder at ARF. And, you know, he takes you on a captivating journey. We're not going to get into the whole thing because it's too long. But in regards to the crossroads of traditional finance and blockchain, remember we're always talking about those on-ramps, right? So ARF is a Swiss-regulated global settlement banking platform. Man, that sounds impressive. They use Stellar to offer short-term liquidity and bank-to-bank financing. Bank-to-bank financing. Remember all the talks for over, you know, a couple years or more? Every time, at every single chance, people will say, well, if you hold Ripple's XRP, that is what? The bank-to-bank, right? But if you hold Stellar, that's more of, you know, the retail side of things. Well, this does seem like I think these guys are right. This might be another ODL solution. Now, this would be the second one. Will there be a third? I don't know. I haven't seen that. But I want to share this with you guys because, like it says, this guy, Kazim, is going to discuss ARF's pivotal role as a meta anchor, facilitating smooth cross-border transfers for multiple financial institutions. So, yeah, you definitely, I think we do need to stop dismissing Stellar and stop saying that they're only for the, you know, for retail cross-border payments and so on. Because literally it mentions for multiple financial institutions, and they have plans to integrate with DeFi platforms on the horizon. I'm glad I hold Stellar, and I think a lot of you guys are glad you hold Stellar too. Let's go ahead and play this. Please smash the like. We'll play a decent amount of this. I don't know exactly like what area we're going to stop. I've seen most of this. I didn't see the tail end. But nonetheless, please smash that like. Here we go.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talks with Tomer. I'm Tomer, VP of Product at the Stellar Development Foundation, and today I have with me Kazim Ozyilmaz, founder of ARF. ARF is a Swiss-regulated global settlement banking platform that uses Stellar to provide short-term liquidity in B2B financing. Kazim, what's up?
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity, and it was a pleasure actually being here. So I'm Kazim. I'm one of the co-founders of ARF, and since 2018, we are trying to build solutions using the digital assets, using proper blockchain platforms to actually enhance traditional finance. This was our goal from the get-go. It took some time, but I think we are there now. So basically, we had a long journey with Stellar, and it all started when we heard your concept. Initially, it started when we heard about your collaboration with IBM and this new approach to SWIFT and global settlements. Basically, we were very interested at that time, and we started studying, understanding the concepts, and learned about your open protocols, SEP31, and all these protocols. And then we basically approached you and tried to be an anchor at that time. And ARF was trying to build its own network at that time, and so it was an interesting concept. There are two networks. Stellar already has anchors. There's already working rails, stable coins issued on Stellar, and we were just building this. And we discussed about the concept of being a meta anchor, an anchor that is able to actually route a lot of payments. So this was our start.
So there's a lot to unpack here. And maybe we can start by your personal journey. Like, how did you end up in payments? Because I saw that you have some background and you have a PhD in computer science. You worked on Bitcoin scaling on IoT devices. How do payments fit in?
Initially, it started I worked extensively in embedded software design and development. So this is my background initially, and my focus was there. Hence IoT, basically. This is what I do, what I learned, what I'm trained for. I worked for Siemens in Germany for some time, developing the core PLC technologies, etc. But at one point, I was mainly developing software for IPTV devices. In 2012, basically, I decided that, okay, I have to build a company and just dive into this journey, become an entrepreneur. And I got a service in mind, and I launched my startup. Basically, the next 4 years was not pleasant. As an engineer, becoming an entrepreneur is a tough thing. So I learned it the hard way, and I transformed my business in this 4 years into a consultancy business. So I provided software services, write some code, etc. But I returned back to academia to start my PhD studies in 2016. And at that time, blockchain is the subject, right? So I know embedded systems. I learned about blockchain. I learned about consensus protocols, how all these things work, etc. And I decided, okay, this can be used in my world, in embedded world. And in the next 1-2 years, blockchain became my world. So embedded is just drifting away. And I decided to drop all my consultancy business and everything and dive into blockchain. And at that time, I started to work with companies from Singapore, Hong Kong, even Chinese. So very diverse people. And I worked on a lot of projects. So this is how I dived into blockchain. In 2018, we started off.
So let's go deeper into ARF. I heard you describe this as a meta anchor. So for our listeners, anchors are what in the Stellar ecosystem is what we call these interoperable on and off ramps. What does it mean to be a meta anchor?
So we were trying to serve a lot of financial institutions at that time. So every financial institutions became an anchor in Stellar Network, and we were providing services, a complete package of software, very basic APIs without a hassle, basically. So we called ourselves a meta anchor, and we will be able to serve multiple financial institutions and connecting them to Stellar Network. So this was our initial start, and we developed this concept, APIs and everything, and onboarded clients, onboarded financial institutions. And from the time to time, we are trying to build that network. And you, of all people, you know how tough it is, right? So onboarding financial institutions, TradFi institutions to this new kind of settlement networks. So there is this compliance department, there is this operations department. So there is how are we going to do the stablecoin thing? So there are a lot of questions, obviously. And we were, well, wrestling with that concept. And one day we saw that, okay, Stellar is allocating a certain amount of sum to actually enhance cross-border transfers by providing credit lines, etc. So Stellar is working on the concept, trying to understand and enhance, remove all these frictions. And we told ourselves that okay, it's a good idea. And there are a lot of ways to do it. And we developed on this concept. We already integrated SEP31, which is the open protocol that Stellar developed for cross-border settlements. So we know that, okay, we can even credit per transaction. We can do that. And we built out this concept. And we transformed, instead of doing payment operations, instead of doing all these settlements via APIs, etc., we shift our focus to becoming the treasury enhancer, basically, providing liquidity, but very short term, even for a single transaction. So ARF dived into new space. So this is a new thing, because if a financial institution tried to borrow USD, for example, Tomar, you know better than me, but there is this sending duration and there is this repayment duration. And even if you don't do anything, it's going to take 5 to 6 days minimum to get paid back, basically. But ARF, it's 1 to 5 days to do the whole thing, basically. So by utilizing these new kind of digital assets, we will be able to provide a service that has not been there before.
And you mentioned SEP31, which is Stellar's cross-border payments open specification. SEPs are standard ecosystem proposals, and there are ways for people to define ways to interact with the Stellar network. And so we have a bunch of these, especially around cross-border payments. I am curious, you've integrated with a lot of different networks, a lot of different financial institutions. What are the challenges there, and what's the difference in experience between different networks and different financial institutions?
Well, from the conceptual point of view, the biggest struggle was approaching things from a network angle and approaching things from a basically working capital provider angle. So these are two separate things, which makes a lot of difference, basically. So especially on the decision maker side, this is a very straightforward thing. And when you provide liquidity, the systems are aligned to open doors for you, basically. Obviously, being in that role has its own challenges, like getting facility, etc. So we are looking to a new kind of financing model for licensed financial institutions. So what are the risks? How are we going to operate? What is the technical infrastructure? For example, Stellar USDC provides the perfect infrastructure for that, right? The settlement time is minimum. Per transaction costs are minimum. So this way, we will be able to openly say that, okay, we can credit even a transaction by even a SEP31 transaction. So on an infrastructure level, the decision metrics is very low. There are only a handful of platforms that you will be able to build on top of these services. So Stellar is the perfect partner here. And at that time, again, Stellar's approach was, we are going to use USDC on Stellar network. You guys designed the protocols, and you know that licensed financial institutions settle among each other with USD. So that's having this initial facility or initial liquidity as USDC, again, is a very nice concept that made our lives much more easier in the end. So we have similar companies, right, providing liquidity to cross-border transfers, but they're native token, for example.
My key takeaway basically is this. I guess you could say, for the most part, I see where Sammy, some other people are coming from in regards to this is like a second ODL, if you will, solution from Stellar. In regards to ARF, I look at more of not necessarily like a true ODL compared to Axios. I think Axios is more of that traditional ODL approach, if you want to compare it to Ripple's XRP. I'm not flooding, of course, ARF by any means, but I also look at it not just from an ODL perspective, but like a capital markets ecosystem, providing a different type of solution, right? It's not necessarily real-time gross settlements instantaneously. I mean, like he pointed out, what was it like? The traditional method is like one or as much as 7 days. With them, it's 1 to 5 days. So, I mean, you got to take that into account. But at the end of the day, another one that technically you could say, hey, look at Stellar. Here's another one that, add to this whole mix of what they got going on. It's very, very impressive. And I don't know. I mean, do we see a third one? Who knows? But ARF is interesting, and glad to share this with you guys. I have shared this with you before in the past, but I saw that was like one of the most recent ones from the Stellar Development Foundation, and more than glad to share it with each and every one of you guys. So please smash that like if you haven't done so already. And of course, that will conclude our Stellar coverage for tonight.